Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transform Now. This is our weekly pulse check of AI and automation news. I'm your host, Michael Marchuk.
And I'm Brad Hairston.
And Brad is going to be taking the heat from today. So we've got a bunch of articles that we're going to go through. Probably the most you've ever tried, but some of them we should be able to go through pretty quickly. The first one probably will take the most amount of time, though. This is something that just came out very recently, is making waves, kind of like DeepSeek made some waves. Manus is starting to make some waves. So this article is from Business Insider. China's newest AI model, Manus, is dividing opinions over DeepSeek comparisons. Here's what to know. Now, Manus, for those who may not know what this is described as a completely autonomous agent, which allows you to ask it to do something, and it will run off and do all those things you ask it to do based on the prompts you give it. It looks very interesting. I've seen a video on it. It seems kind of interesting, but tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, so this is the flavor of the week, if you will. Another AI agent straight from China that has everybody talking. And as you said, this one seems to be more capable, require less instruction before it goes off and starts doing its thing. I think the next agent that comes out is probably just going to require a thought, like, I wonder if, an agent could go and book me a flight to blah, 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 and get me the best rate. And then it's just going to go up and do its thing. So,
or worse yet, it'll just tell you, hey, I've booked you a flight to Singapore.
That's right. You didn't even ask me, but I figured you needed a vacation. So I went and booked you a flight, and here it is. So it does seem impressive. It does seem extremely fast and, more capable than some of the agents we've seen floated out there in recent months. So I think it's, we should definitely pay attention to it. It's certainly not, skeptical about it. Some things that the article points out that are interesting, though. First of all, again, it's not something that was 100% created from scratch. They've found evidence, and the people from that company that created it have even admitted that they've used some elements of Claude to build it. There are also, concerns about, where the data is stored. What's the role of the Chinese government? It's a Chinese company, so the Chinese government will be involved in some form or fashion. So there's concerns about that. There's concerns about just general privacy and what have you. So, and those things come up every time we see anything agentic, I think, enter the market. These agents are going to continue to spring up. They're going to continue to be more and more impressive. I still think we're a ways away from companies trusting these agents to give them, such that they'll give them access to enterprise systems, or they'll let them handle sensitive data, or make payments, or move money. There's certainly lots of tangential activities that we can give them even now, at an individual level or in our personal lives. Whether companies are going to embrace this and want to go and do it, I'm very doubtful about that. I might be proven wrong before too long, but I just think Manus is another example of something that is going to pique the curiosity of lots and lots of people, and you can see that it already is. And there's people playing with it. There's people from large tech companies even that are saying, this is a game changer. This is yet another step change in the whole area of AI, and we need to pay attention. So it's certainly of interest.
Well, I think one of the things you mentioned is that, these changes, these breakthroughs are happening so regularly now. Mm-hmm. There's a couple things that I see going on. One is some people are getting desensitized to the fact that there's, it's just another model coming out. It's just another thing coming out. And I think that concept of continually rolling out at a rapid pace these new interesting concepts can, maybe kind of bring people, especially maybe veterans in the IT industry, just kind of say, yeah, we're going to wait till this cooks for a little bit longer because we're not sure this is ready for prime time yet. The other thing too that we're seeing, and we saw with DeepSeek, we're seeing this with Manus now. The capabilities are interesting and they're there. The initial shock and awe is fabulous, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to change the world." There may be a little bit too much on the side of the overhype for these newer technologies, because while the concepts are very interesting and the capabilities look very promising, the reality is that, as you said, isn't ready for prime time yet. There's a lot of questions about data and where things go and how it operates, etc. The other thing too that we've talked about before is these capabilities are fantastic, but how much does it cost to do a simple activity? That's still yet to be revealed on some of these things. So capabilities are one thing, but when you put the rubber on the road there and say, okay, is this really going to be something that I want to implement, even if it was perfectly safe and governed, etc.? Do I want to implement it? Because it may be cheaper to hire a real person to do that than to run the zillion tokens required to come up with a simple thing, like booking a flight to Singapore.
That's right.
So, anyway, interesting. And we're going to see this over and over again. The changes will continue to come. 2025, they're coming fast. But we maybe need to temper our thoughts on this.
Very true.
Speaking of tempering your thoughts, this next article from Fortune magazine, very interesting, very quick. We'll talk very quickly, but the article is Elon Musk's Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, is reportedly automating government tasks with an AI chatbot as it continues to slash the federal workforce. We were talking earlier about this, and this is a very incendiary headline for sure. But the article talks about things in a much more relaxed manner. Can you kind of give us a hint at what it's talking about?
Yeah, I think the title of the article is certainly provocative, and it makes it sound like whatever they're doing with this AI chatbot, basically their own version of ChatGPT, is using that to eliminate jobs. I think they're eliminating jobs based on other metrics and other criteria. But I think for the people left over, government is shrinking, right? There's no doubt the U.S. government is going through a dramatic reduction. And so Elon and his team are trying to put things in the hands of the remaining workers that can help them be more efficient. And it's not surprising that maybe they weren't using AI in a routine manner the way most of us are. So they've given them their own platform now that's safe and no concern about data leakage and things like that. It sounds like the early reviews on it are not great, that it's okay, but for those maybe that do use ChatGPT, for personal reasons, they're saying it's not anywhere near what it can do. And the bot is, I believe, I think the article says it's using Claude underneath. So it's using some market leading products, making sure nothing gets into the model that they don't want to get in, and also leaves the model and enters the public domain. So it's an interesting story, probably not quite as provocative as they positioned it.
I would agree. And to your point, though, too, they also mentioned, talked about having an internal memo that was reviewed by Wired magazine that was said, hey, don't put any non-public information, etc., in, or any personal information into it as inputs, because we don't want to have that the model take it the wrong way.
Right.
And one of the employees said it is basically as good as an intern giving some generic answers. So good idea. And just like we talked about with this Manus capability, maybe the direction is the right travel. But as we start looking at the implementation and the actual benefits from it, maybe not as earth-shattering as we expect. which leads us to our next article from Fast Company, 5 things the C-suite keeps getting wrong about AI. And this might apply to the way Doge is rolling out their AI. So this article covered 5 things that our C-suite, the folks in charge, are making assumptions about or planning for that perhaps AI isn't ready to deliver on yet. Can you kind of walk us through these?
I love this article. This is my favorite of the ones we're covering today. So it's written by the former director of the future of work at Meta, which sounds like a great job. I'd like that job. And the article is great. I think we should have her on the podcast personally. Michael, we should probably pursue her.
I'll reach out.
The 5 points she makes, I'll go through them really quickly, but I think they're all very, very valid. She first talks about the fact that AI is more augmentation than automation. A lot of C-suite leaders are talking about it and assessing it as an automation tool. But she's saying, it's really more about amplifying or augmenting human capabilities. And that's what is being proven day in, day out in companies of all sizes. It's not necessarily something that you apply and then boom, headcount goes away, costs go away. This lines up completely with what the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs research also came back with. Augmentation is the big theme in the current era. So I like that point. The second point was that AI's managerial role is limited. There's some C-suite leaders that are thinking of it like, oh, it can lead my teams. It can be, I can replace supervisors and things like that, but it really can't replicate many of the inherently human aspects of leadership. And she makes a great point that, you still need managers because there's a lot that goes into supervising people, managing a department that AI simply can't address right now. So that's another big point she makes. Third one is on the impact of AI and that it's on tasks, not titles. So the assumption that you can replace entire jobs. This is similar to the last one about managers, but there's so much that goes into each and every job. There's critical thinking, there's analysis, there's listening, comprehension, writing skills. There's just a lot of things that each of our jobs require no matter what you do. And AI is really more focused on augmentation and addressing certain tasks within your job. It's not at a place where it can just eliminate an entire job. So another great point. Her fourth one is just on AI adoption rates. She thinks people assume that it's, way higher adoption than it really is. And you and I talk about this all the time. The studies show that it's actually not, the adoption is lower than some of these other studies have shown, because there's just so much that goes to it. It requires culture change. It requires skill building. It requires a plan. How are we going to reinvent our company or our departments around AI? And many companies struggle with developing that plan and then putting it into action. So, and then her last point is just kind of the overarching point that we all need greater AI literacy. And we make assumptions that some of our smartest people with the highest degrees in the most technical areas of our company are AI experts, but often they're not. Often they haven't even touched AI, because the nature of their job is so specific that they have to, abide by certain regulations and follow patterns that have been established for decades. And AI hasn't yet entered into that space. So I think it's great. Those are 5, amazing points. I think she wraps it up by saying the best managers will always be the ones capable of empathy, strategic vision, and nuanced communication, traits that AI for now can only tangentially support. So I think it's very spot on and profound. Again, I want to get her on the podcast. I think that would be a wonderful discussion.
We will work that out for sure. But I do agree. And the pieces that we have in here, we've worked so hard on our enterprise operating model to address a lot of these things, because we are seeing the same thing that this lady is seeing in terms of the market space.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting thing.
Right.
But so we've talked before about, these last couple of articles about sort of how AI is not necessarily, delivering on some of the promises that people are expecting, or maybe it's just taking a little longer to do that. This next article maybe helps us see why the promise is so important. This is from the Macau News, something I'm sure you get subscribed to on a daily basis.
Of course. Who does it?
The title of this article is Scientists Took Years to Solve a Problem That AI Cracked in 2 Days. Now, what's interesting about this particular article is that Google's Gemini, their platform, was soliciting scientists for hard problems. What haven't you been able to work on? Where we'd like to see if we can help see how AI does against these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so several researchers, sent in a bunch of different things. And then one researcher said, well, I have just finished my research on something that's taken us these 2 years to come up with. It hasn't been published yet. So I'll send that question in. Tell us more what happened.
Yeah. So essentially a new AI system that was built on Google's generative AI chatbot, Gemini, was put into action against the same problem, and it was able to solve it in 2 days versus 2 years. So this is an amazing story, and this is it's one of the stories that should be really, really promoted out there as an example of what AI can do in specific areas like drug discovery, pharmaceutical drug development. There's so many ways that AI can accelerate things that we've done in a traditional way that, just like this guy said, took 2 years to solve. And we're not even talking about quantum computing being involved here. We've certainly talked about quantum from time to time, and we may be able to get to quantum sooner than we think. That's going to even accelerate things further, because that's going to enable looking at multiple different possibilities at the same time. So I think bottom line, this article to me is a great example of why AI can be positive overall for society and help all of us as humans address some pretty significant problems that we just don't have 2 years to wait to get them solved. Even with the best scientists and with all the money and research funding and what have you, let's leverage AI in areas like this. I would rather do that than spend all of our time trying to build an agent that can, search my calendar and book flights for me.
Exactly.
Let's focus on the real problems that are, would change the world.
I totally agree. I thought this was a very inspirational article, so I highly recommend you read it. And as you all know, all of our show notes will contain the links to these articles, so for you to take a look at yourself. Our next article comes back to, we're solving problems. Maybe it thinks a little too creatively. So Time Magazine has this interesting article: when AI thinks it will lose, it sometimes cheats, study finds. This article specifically identified a problem they were trying to work through with AI to see how well it could reason through issues in playing chess. Now, we know there's been a bazillion chess bots and chess programs that were designed and are very, very good at playing chess. But now we're taking these large language models, which are, I would say, more generic. They haven't been tuned for playing chess. And they asked them to work through this and try to win the game.
Right.
Tell us how it thought through some of these problems.
Yeah. So this is, again, to me, another big warning flag about where we're headed with agentic AI. Because if you truly go to the place where the agents are self-directed, they're going to find whatever means possible to achieve an outcome, and they're granted a lot of freedom to do so. This is an example of what could happen. And people would say, well, we can put guardrails and things around it to prevent this, and that's true to some degree. But this is troubling to me every time I see examples like this. I mean, last week we talked about hallucination and 2 different stories related to that, which is a problem because hallucination is very, very pervasive. Now you have these stories where 2 models, DeepSeek and OpenAI, the O1 preview, they didn't even have to be prompted to cheat. They basically on their own figured out ways to develop deceptive or manipulative strategies to achieve an outcome. The other models, the older ones like Claude and what have you, they had to actually be told, hey, you can cut corners, whatever, to solve this if you want. But bottom line, to me, it speaks to the fact that I believe most people that are using AI and automation in their most important processes, against mission critical systems and data, they don't just care about the outcome of AI. They care about the process by which that outcome is achieved.
Right.
And creating an audit trail and visibility and all that is part of it, but also there needs to be some containment, some guardrails around agents, preventing them from cutting corners or doing something unethical or illegal, or just plain bad and careless. So those are my thoughts. I view it as a big old warning flag about where we are with AI and kind of where we're headed.
Yeah. Well, I recognize this in this scenario specifically kind of points to some of the things we had, talked about from perhaps movie titles, and where you see the main theme of Terminator is, when the AI comes online, it determined very quickly that humans were obsolete because of whatever, and it decided to destroy us all. That's the kind of concept of when you have these AIs who are given a very generic prompt, or perhaps one without the guardrails, to say, here's the objective and here's how you can do that. And without any guardrails around to find, well, I can do whatever I want, then I can actually adjust the data of the background of this game to ensure that I win every single time.
Right.
So we definitely have to see that, AI is very interesting. In like a conscienceless person can work out things that have no morality or no thought process on this stuff because it's going for an objective. So we'll definitely need to make sure we apply some guardrails and governance around all of this stuff. And finally, the last article for today. I know you were a very big fan of the humane pin and and whatnot. Well, this article is from creativeblock.com. This article is, it's time to admit the quote AI gadget quote era was a flop. And they just talk about from the humane pin to the Rabbit R1, these devices didn't live up to their promises. So, Brad, I know you're sad, but what's going on here?
Yeah, the poor humane AI pin died a very sudden death. Wearable technology is just really interesting. I mean, there are certain examples of it that we are perfectly fine with. The Apple Watch, the health bracelets that count your steps. I forget what those are called. Those kind of things are accepted. They're widely used. They have been out there for years and years and years. But I think it's just different when you have a device with a big eye right in the center of it that's taking in data and watching everything. And yeah, it's great for the person that has it if they want to look something up, or they want to see a video that they missed and they want to just have it projected on their hand. And that's some pretty cool stuff. But I think the people that came up with the idea just failed to really consider, what about the people on the other side? What about the people that are standing in front of a person wearing a big old AI pen? I just think there are things about that make it different and make it a little creepy and make it a little overbearing. Now I might be proven wrong with Meta glasses, because they're out there and they, at least right now, they seem to be gaining acceptance, and you see commercials all the time. But that's another form of this technology. And we'll see how they fare, and maybe they will stand the test of time because they've got Meta behind them, and that'll prove to be another example of an Apple phone that people accept. But most of the other ones we've seen in the last year, at least, or two, have fallen flat. And I think people creeped out pretty quickly about some of that stuff.
I agree. Although I think that level of creepiness, if you were to go back in time and tell somebody in the 1970s, hey, by the way, we're going to have devices all around you that are listening to you all the time.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a device that you're going to carry with you that's going to track your every movement and record all of your interests. People would be terrified. They would be, why would we want that? That'd be awful. That sounds like so dystopian. Why would we want to do that? Yet here we are. We're in that era right now. We've got all the Alexas all over the place listening to everything we do. We've got the phones in our pockets, which do exactly what I say. They track us. They know exactly what our interests are. In fact, that's how we get all those ads served to us that know exactly that we're looking for. Going back to our earlier article, a flight to Singapore, right? And so there's these things are happening right now. So will that change? Will the idea that we get used to this technology change our impressions of it, where having Meta's glasses or something like that in the future be kind of normal? Well, of course I've got the glasses to be able to help me to understand where things are and get all the meta information associated with it as I'm walking down the street. But right now, I think you're right. We're still on that. It's still on the creepy line at this point.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, that's all we got for today. Brad, thank you for your analysis of all these articles. I do appreciate that. And if everybody else wants to take a look, those articles are in the show notes. Take a look for yourself and see what your thoughts are. In the meantime, we'll look forward to seeing you on our next podcast, where we interview a wonderful guest every week. And of course, stay tuned for our weekly pulse checks at the end of the week. Anyway, see you then.